The 2025 NBA draft is officially complete, and new Kings general manager Scott Perry continues to impress with 3 new additions to the Kings. We'll talk about that, plus rumors swirling around the league, around the organization. Dennis Schroder, the front runner to be the next point guard here in Sacramento. I'll talk about what I know about that and why it kind of makes sense. Plus, Malik Monk potentially being the most likely King to be traded, but his market might not be what we expect it to be. That's all coming for you right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all offseason long. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. We got a lot to get to on today's podcast, so I'm not going to waste any time. We're going to start with what happened in round 2 and after round 2 of the NBA draft today. The Sacramento Kings didn't make any trades, not as many fireworks as last night, night 1, when of course the Kings moved up to the 24th pick to go out and draft Nick Clifford. Instead, the Kings stay put. They keep their 42nd pick, and they use that 42nd pick to draft Maxime Raynaud, the French big man out of Stanford. We're talking 7'2", kind of 7'1.5", but in shoes, 7'2", with a 7'5" wingspan. He was a senior at Stanford, spent the last 4 years just down the road as a member of the Stanford Cardinal. And like I mentioned, he is French from Paris. I believe that is his hometown. Came over to the United States to go to school. 22 years old. So he's another older prospect, not a super senior like Nick is, but 4-year senior out of Stanford before coming to the NBA. His numbers, his final year, his senior year at Stanford, are very impressive, especially offensively. He averaged 20 points per game. He shot more than any other player on Stanford's roster. I'm talking 15 shots per game. This kid likes to shoot the ball. He also averaged 10.6 rebounds. You expect that number to be high with him being 7'2", and also averaged 1.4 blocks per game. So he provides some of that rim protection that the Sacramento Kings need. However, a primary weakness of Raynaud's, the reason why he fell to the second round. Well, there's 2 reasons that he fell as far as 42. I'll get to the more fun one in just a second. But the reason why he did not go higher in the draft, because he has the offensive skill set for his height to be a lottery caliber pick. But the defense is suspect. The defense is the weakness, and that's something that we'll have to keep a close eye on. He is a second rounder, so we don't know if he's going to be spending time in the G League or if he's going to be with the main roster full time. The Kings, of course, as of right now, have 2 centers ahead of him in Domantas Sabonis and Jonas Valanciunas that as long as they're on the Kings roster, they're not going anywhere. We'll have more on that coming up in just a second. But we'll see how much the defense is going to be a difficult learning curve for Raynaud, but he does have the wingspan, he has the height, and the ability to protect the rim while also spacing the floor. He shot 34% from three-point range on 5.5 attempts per game. So we're not talking about a 34% shooter just chucking a corner 3 up here or there. Like, we're talking a high volume of three-point attempts. A third of his attempts per game came from beyond the three-point line. I mean, a good comp, I think, is like a Brook Lopez. And I've talked for years about how perfect Brook Lopez would be for the Sacramento Kings in so many ways, right? A big man that can space the floor so he keep things open on offense, can stand in the corner and receive those kick-out passes or stand on the wing. And then on the defensive end, he's someone that can help you, of course, secure defensive rebounds, rebound the basketball, does have some ability as a pick-and-roll threat, and then his height naturally should certainly help Sacramento in the rim protection department, which, of course, is, as we know very well, the Kings have sorely lacked in rim protection for a long time. Now, I mentioned there's a more fun reason for why he fell to 42. I've heard that Sacramento was actually a preferred destination for Raynaud and his camp. I don't know the specifics as to why, but I can speculate. And it reminds me a lot of Keon Ellis. Now we're talking completely different players, right? Keon Ellis, a guard, Raynaud, a 7'2" center. But when the Kings signed Keon Ellis as an undrafted free agent a handful of years ago, 3 years ago now, believe it or not, specifically Keon chose the Sacramento Kings. Why? Because he looked at the Kings, looked at what that team desperately needed, which was some 3-and-D impact from the guard position, a defender that could space the floor. The Kings were sorely lacking at that time. And he looked at Sacramento and said, they need a player like me, and there's also going to be opportunity in Sacramento. I think Raynaud can look at the Sacramento Kings the exact same way right now. This team needs shooting from their bigs. This team needs rim protection. Hey, I can provide that. And as a 22-year-old who is more NBA ready naturally, whether it's physically or mentally because he spent so much time in college, he probably looks at the Sacramento Kings and goes, yeah, I want to go there because I feel like even as a second-round pick, I actually have a legitimate shot to get some playing time and be a part of the NBA rotation right away. You know, when you get into the second round, unlike like the lottery, where you go in the lottery is extremely important, not just for what team drafts you, but the amount of money that you get is very specific on if you go first or second or fifth or eighth. Like the money differential is major. In the second round, I think it's more important to find, for players specifically, to prioritize their fit and find the right place where they are going to get true opportunity as a second rounder to become the steal of the draft or to become a diamond in the rough story. Raynaud and his camp, I believe, look at the Sacramento Kings and preferred the Kings to draft them over other teams ahead of Sacramento in the second round because he feels that the opportunity and the need here in Sacramento is good for him. It fits him. It makes sense. Again, that's just speculation on my part, but it's pretty easy to connect those dots. But what I wonder now, and we have to be careful because we're talking about a second round pick. Although if you look at a lot of mocks, Raynaud was mocked to go like late first round. We're talking like the 26, 27 range. I wonder if this starts to open the door a little bit for a potential Jonas Valanciunas trade. It would make sense. Now, again, I'm not saying that you could just replace Jonas Valanciunas, who I really, really like and thought was a phenomenal pickup for the Kings at the trade deadline. I'm not saying you can just replace Jonas Valanciunas with a rookie who's a second rounder at that, right? Raynaud's got to earn his opportunity. He's not going to be promised or given anything. But if you feel that you now have a center option or center depth that can contribute to the NBA right away, and you know that Valanciunas will have value around the league because there are teams that are desperately searching for a starting caliber center, and you got two of them, trading Jonas Valanciunas doesn't sound like the craziest thing on the planet. If I'm the Sacramento Kings, I'm at least, and they should be listening to offers and humoring offers for everybody. But maybe Scott Perry's now a little more inclined to move on from Jonas Valanciunas, or at least he has a little bit of depth there to where if the deal makes sense, he now feels better about pulling the trigger. Not reporting that, just speculating and just, again, trying to connect the dots. It would not surprise me if Jonas Valanciunas is suddenly involved in more trade talks. In addition to Raynaud, the Sacramento Kings signed 2 players to 2-way contracts at the end of the draft. The first one, Dylan Cardwell, 6'11" center out of Auburn, averaged 5 points, 5 rebounds, and a block per game, played about 20 minutes, helped the Auburn Tigers make a deep run. He is also a super senior, like Neek. He played 5 years, I believe, of college basketball. He is a screen and roll on offense, rebounding and defensive big, right? Defense. When you read about him and you hear people talk about him, it's, man, the impact that he can have on the defensive end. You're talking a gritty, hard-nosed, willing to get down and dirty and play defense. That is who Dylan Cardwell is. He was the SEC leader in offensive rebound percentage. He isn't a good athlete, so he can fly at the rim to try and create second or third chance opportunities for his team on offense, as well as being a good defensive rebounder. And again, I cannot emphasize enough how much everybody talks about his defense. One of the best defenders in the conference, right? So this is a guy that makes a ton of sense for Scott Perry to offer a 2-way contract to. Hey, we need defense here in Sacramento. We need to find guys and build a culture of defense. And you're coming in as a 2-way guy. You're going to get opportunity with the main roster. You may even get some sort of playing time, as Keon Ellis and Neemias Queta are perfect examples in this organization specifically. Even Isaac Jones last season. You have the chance in Sacramento to play as a 2-way player and turn into more than that if you handle your business the right way. And if this young man, Dylan Cardwell, can come in and continue to be what he is and develop as a hard-nosed defensive big, an athletic, versatile defensive big at the G League and then NBA level, there's, of course, going to be opportunity and need for him here in Sacramento. So it makes tremendous amount of sense. And then the Kings went out and got a guy that is very popular amongst 2 people who are very popular in Sacramento. One is Pete Youngman, former Sacramento Kings athletic trainer for years. He was the athletic trainer of the Kings for during all of the glory years of Weber and Peja and C-Web and Vlade and Doug, all of them. He spent some time working in the G League, and he absolutely loves this guy, and so does Jill Adge, who, if you don't know who Jill Adge is, Sacramento Kings super fan, brilliant fan, really plugged in, loves these diamond in the rough type players, right? And Jill has been on the podcast a number of times. She loves this guy too. Isaac Noguez, who was in the G League last year. He kind of had a weird path. Went to the G League, played a year for the Rip City Remix, and then declared for the draft to get drafted. He averaged 6 rebounds, 4.6 assists, and 2 steals a game in 24 minutes as a rookie last year. The offensive game, it's not really there. He only scored 2 points a game. Offensively, whatever. Defensively, though, I'm not just talking about a good defender with high upside. He was the youngest player in G League history at 21 years old. The youngest G Leaguer ever to make the all-defensive team. As a rookie, came in and made the all-defensive team in his first year in the G League. Right? He even had, Jill pointed this out to me, he had a game against the Santa Cruz Warriors where he had 10 steals. This guy is a dog. This is a dude that just rolls his sleeves up, if he had sleeves. I know jerseys don't have sleeves. Rolls his sleeves up, goes to work, right? Hounds you, harasses you, annoys you on the defensive end. Again, we're talking in the G League. Of course, there's a jump between the G League and the NBA. Do I expect Isaac Noguez to come to the Sacramento Kings and immediately start guarding Steph Curry? No. But here's another 2-way guy that you can bring in that, think about this. His development, of course, is important. But if this is the kind of dude that he is, he's just a dog that's going to work hard. How beneficial do you think it's going to be for him to work with the other guards in Sacramento just in training camp? Not just for him, but for them, right? Whether it's Devin Carter, Malik Monk, Zach LaVine, whoever they go out to get to address their point guard position. Say, hey, you're going against this kid, like a Matthew Dellavedova type kid, who's just going to annoy the hell out of you, but make you better every day of training camp, every day in practice. I'm not just excited for him. I'm excited to how he can help positively impact the culture of the NBA roster, even as a two-way player. I'm curious. I'm realistic, but I'm curious. And you know what I am? I'm even more sad and angry that the Kings aren't playing in the California Classic and that the Cali Classic isn't here in Sacramento. I want to see these dudes ball. I guess we just have to wait till Vegas. But there's plenty more that's happening with the Sacramento Kings outside of the draft. Got to talk about these Dennis Schroder rumors, why I feel they make sense for the direction or state of the Kings short term. Plus, more talk on Malik Monk potentially being the one to be traded here in Sacramento. That's all still coming here on Locked On Kings. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Wayfair. There's nothing like stepping into your own outdoor space and feeling like you've escaped to a personal oasis. If you're wanting to update your patio this season, Wayfair has made it so easy to turn it into a space that feels like yours. Comfortable, stylish, and ready for summer. Wayfair has everything you need to level up your outdoor space. Conversation sets, outdoor bars, fire pits, hot tubs, gazebos, and yes, of course, even those hip string lights that set the vibe in that backyard. It's like giving that backyard a resort feel without paying your resort prices, right? They have everything that you could possibly find. New outdoor dining sets, whether you're looking for a small table just to enjoy a meal or a big table to have friends and family over for those barbecues. Even some modern lounge chairs if you're looking to really just chill and kick your feet up. No matter what you order, whether it's big or small, you're one, going to get a great deal, and two, the shipping is free, it's fast, and it's totally hassle-free. Do not wait. Make your outdoor space your dream oasis today with Wayfair and enjoy it all summer long. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop a huge outdoor selection. That's Wayfair, WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. So before the draft, about 48 hours or so before the draft, so earlier this week, rumors started circulating and building of Dennis Schroder, that he was quickly emerging as the top candidate, or maybe favorite, for the Kings to go out and get to address that starting point guard vacancy. And to the surprise of nobody, the reaction here in Sacramento was, oh, I get it. It's not the most exciting option, right? It's not the best name out there. Now, let's not be disrespectful to Dennis Schroder, because yes, he's bounced around the league. But Dennis Schroder's a good basketball player. But I think a lot of people look at that and go, man, earlier in the we were talking about Trae Young. You were doing podcasts about the possibility of LaMelo Ball. Dennis Schroder? Yeah. I have heard that Dennis, like these rumors are very real. Very real. I'm not saying that Dennis Schroder is the top choice for the Kings. I'm not saying that Scott Perry's like, get me Dennis Schroder. That's who I want. That's the point guard that I want leading my team going into the future. That's not it. But I think the Sacramento Kings recognize for their circumstance, Dennis Schroder makes a lot of sense. Let me explain. How many times have I told you on this podcast, since the season ended over the last couple months, that I'm not very excited about next season? That I feel like next season is going to be a gap year, quote unquote gap year, or it's going to be kind of a wash. Didn't mean I think the Kings are going to be terrible. In fact, some would argue that it would be better for the Kings to be terrible next season and go the full rebuild route, blow it up. It's not what the Kings are doing. As constructed, I think the Sacramento Kings are a mid team. I've also told you that I think being a mid-team is not good. I mean, it's not, I know being a mid-team is not good at all in the NBA. But that's kind of what this roster is forced to be right now. And they made that decision for themselves with the Zach LaVine trade. Now, I'm not saying it's all Zach LaVine's fault. I'm saying when they went out and acquired Zach LaVine for De'Aaron Fox, they went all in that season. They didn't make it. And now they're going into another season where all they can do is hope to make it again, more than likely via the play-in, while the rest of the Western Conference continues to get better. Teams behind them continue to get better. Teams ahead of them continue to get better. So, I see this. I feel pretty confident that this is where short-term the Sacramento Kings are headed. And while I'm not delighted to know that those feelings are verified or confirmed or accurate, I am excited to understand or to believe that there are those in the Sacramento Kings front office that might have the same outlook as me. Meaning, they need to get through next season before they can really start to make significant change, because we're talking now there's only 1 year left on Zach LaVine's deal. Now DeMar DeRozan, if he's still on the team, which I told you on yesterday's Locked On Kings podcast, is getting more and more likely. Now DeMar DeRozan's final year of his contract is partially guaranteed. Now you're 1 year further into Domantas Sabonis' new big contract that the Kings gave him last summer. It might just be a year where Scott Perry has to wait it out. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to waste the time. He's still going to make other moves, pay attention to how his rookies do, pay attention to how Keegan Murray continues to develop, or Keon Ellis or any of these guys. He's going to be evaluating this roster all year long to distinguish which guys fit his identity and his mold for this team and his vision for this team going forward, and which guys don't. And then he'll promptly, when able and when it makes sense, move on from those guys. But anybody that was hoping for a quick fix this summer, I would argue that that would have been worse for this organization if Scott Perry came in here and started saying, man, we're just a piece away. We're very close. If Scott Perry had said that at any point, and he has not, he has recognized that there is talent here on this roster, because of course there is. This is a talented roster. It's just not cohesive, and it doesn't make sense. I've been telling you this. And Scott Perry was quick to point out the defensive problems, the lack of size and athleticism. Scott Perry's seeing the same things that we're all seeing. That is encouraging to me. So if Scott Perry is looking at this team next season and going, it's kind of just a wash, we kind of need to just get through it before I can make significant change, then Dennis Schroder makes a lot of sense. Because why would I use future assets to go out and trade for a placeholder point guard when I could just sign a placeholder point guard using my MLE, mid-level exception, which is what I think Dennis Schroeder is going to cost? Go out and just get him for a year or two, bring him in, have him hold it down, and I didn't have to trade away any pieces or any future first-round picks or whatever to get it done. Yes, we would all prefer Emmanuel Quickley or Darius Garland, or some of us Trae Young. Scott Perry's not one of those someones, by the way. But we would like bigger names. We would like more talented younger players. Of course, there are better options out there for trade, but better options on paper, not necessarily better options for where the Sacramento Kings are right now, where they're going to be next season, and where they're trying to get to. Does that make sense? So Dennis Schroder, while not being the most exciting option, might be the right guy for not the most exciting season. It's a placeholder. And I know that doesn't fire you up. I know that doesn't make season ticket holders excited. But that's the position this organization is in. And I would argue that is smarter from your general manager than trying to make a swing to salvage or plug the holes of a sinking ship when he should just rebuild it. Not completely, but rebuild what he can. I think Dennis Schroder makes a lot of sense. If I were putting money on it, I would bet Dennis Schroder is going to be the starting point guard for the Sacramento Kings, is going to be the guy that they address. And I saw the article from Sam Amick. If you haven't checked it out, Sam Amick, of course, an incredibly well plugged in reporter, talks about a lot of things in his recent Athletic article, talks about the Jonathan Kuminga stuff, which I think is interesting. We'll talk about that later. Does mention other names, including Russell Westbrook. But I think that's just what they are. They're other names, other options. The Kings aren't going to throw all their eggs in one basket. It's not like they're looking at free agency and going, Dennis Schroder or bust. They got to have backup plans. Of course, Russell Westbrook should be considered. But I feel pretty confident right now that Dennis Schroder and Russell Westbrook, in terms of odds or likelihood, are on completely different playing fields here in Sacramento. Things change quickly in the NBA. Schroeder could change his mind. Kings could change their mind. Other teams could swoop in. We don't know. But as of right now, as of the time of me recording this podcast, I'm not just throwing out random garbage. I think I've proven over the last 48 hours that I'm pretty plugged in and I know what I'm talking about. Dennis Schroeder is, I won't say a lock for the Kings, but he's the most likely result. Again, if that doesn't excite you, I get it. But for where the Kings are and where the Kings are going, at least short term, as I laid out, it kind of makes sense. This episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is also brought to you by Skims. Now, when I found out that Skims was making underwear for men, I was intrigued. I've heard so much about their quality from friends and family, and I had to give it a try, and let me tell you, it's worth the hype. Right? Especially, oh my God, especially during summertime. I've had issues with underwear, whether it's fit, comfort, or even, finding the right style. Well, Skims changed all their men's line, offers something for everyone from boxer briefs to classic briefs, all designed with the perfect balance of comfort and style. The Skims boxer briefs are game changers, right? In terms of during the summertime, keeping cool, keeping comfortable. Guys, you know what I'm talking about, whether you're sitting at your desk working or you're out working in the yard or maybe you're playing a round of golf, right? If your underwear is not comfortable, you're going to feel it. Well, Skims helps take care of you in every single way. Plus, like I said, they're fashionable, they're stylish. You won't even know that they're there half the time. I'm not suggesting going commando or anything like that, but sometimes it might feel like you are with how great of a job that Skims does. Shop SKIMS Mens at skims.com. Let them know that we sent you here. After you place your order, select podcast in their survey and select this show, Locked On Kings, in the drop-down menu that follows. Get yourself a pair of Skims. You won't be disappointed. Last thing to talk about in this very, very busy show, and this is not going to be the last time we talk about this. Things are changing all the time for the Sacramento Kings, and like I pointed out on yesterday's podcast, to rehash, I've been telling you here on Locked On Kings since the offseason started that I would be shocked if DeMar DeRozan was the Sacramento King going forward. I thought that DeRozan would want to move on. I thought that based off how last season went and how the fit wasn't really right, that the Sacramento Kings would want to move on. But I'm thinking from the perspective of last year's team and all of us who have been there for the ride, not from the perspective of Scott Perry, a new general manager that's coming in and trying to make the most out of this roster and starting fresh. This roster is not his. Only 4 players are his at this point. 2 of them two-way guys, 1 of them a second-round pick, and then the 24th pick in Nick Clifford that he got last night. 4 players are his. The rest of this entire roster, he inherited. And he's going to go through this roster, decide what he likes and what he doesn't like. And I have a pretty strong indication that he likes DeMar DeRozan. I have a pretty strong indication and he likes Domantas Sabonis too. In fact, I use this analogy on D'Lo and KC on ESPN 1320 today. If it was a schoolyard style pick'em, right? And he had his 3 guard/wings in front of him, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and Malik Monk. And you say, pick one. That's the one that you can keep. That's the guy that's going to be on your team. I think Scott Perry would pick DeMar DeRozan over the other 2. Now, the reason why Zach LaVine's not really brought up in this conversation is because of his contract. I don't think LaVine's going anywhere because nobody, I guess other than the Kings, wanted to trade for that contract. So LaVine's not going anywhere, at least for right now. So that leaves Malik Monk. I think Malik Monk, as of now, maybe other than Devin Carter, but Malik Monk should have more value than Devin Carter. Malik Monk is the most likely King to be traded. I think he's the most high-profile King to be traded at this point. Again, and I emphasized this yesterday, that does not mean that a DeMar DeRozan trade is not going to happen. But we're talking about Scott Perry's preferences. And we're talking about Scott Perry's identity traits and what he wants this team to be. And I think we're starting to kind of figure out or get the feeling that whether Scott Perry feels like Malik doesn't fit them or Malik just doesn't fit them, Malik's not part of that long-term plan. Now, this surprises me a little bit because I like Malik Monk a lot. I think Malik Monk is one of the best, should have been the best for 2 years in a row, sixth man in the NBA. We do not know if he's willing to go back to that role for Doug Christie, especially after he got a taste of starting. So maybe he's not a big fan of going back to it. Regardless, it doesn't sound like Malik is high on the list of priorities for Scott Perry. If Malik Monk is still on the Sacramento Kings come training camp, okay, I'd be fine with that. But I think we have enough, or I feel pretty confident in saying that if Scott Perry's putting together a long-term plan and identifying the players on this roster that fit that long-term plan, Malik Monk ain't on that list. To be honest, I don't think Zach LaVine is on that list either. But again, Malik should be easier to move than Zach LaVine. I say should be because this I'm surprised to learn and get an indication of. Malik Monk's market's not great. I thought absolutely there'd be interest for Malik Monk. Absolutely. I mean, $18 million per year, that's a steal for Malik Monk. We were saying that like 12 months ago right now when the Kings were signing Malik Monk. Well, it was a little bit later than that. But when the Kings signed Malik Monk to an extension or gave him a new deal, $18 million. Oh my God, what a steal for the Sacramento Kings. Well, doesn't sound like a lot of the league as of now feels that way. I've heard these rumors and heard discussions about, hey, maybe there's interest from the Toronto Raptors for Malik Monk, and maybe the Kings could use Malik Monk to go out and get like an Emmanuel quickly and address their guard position in that way. Those are fun conversations, but I don't have any indication that they're more than that at this point. Again, things could change. Yeah, free agency hasn't even opened yet. There's plenty of time for things to change. What's happening today is not guaranteed to last into tomorrow. But I'm telling you, as of now, I believe Malik Monk is the most likely King to be traded. I also believe that Malik Monk's value in the market is not what we think it should be, or not what we think, or not even close to what we would expect it to be. Now, that might result in Scott Perry saying, all right, it's just not the right time to move him. We're just going to bring him back. Because I don't think Scott Perry is going to give Malik away for scraps. He's not going to give DeMar DeRozan away for scraps. He's going to look for value, or at least some sort of fair return, for a player of Malik's caliber. But if the market ain't there, you can't force anybody to trade with you. I know Kings fans are disgusted by the idea of running it back. But, and I am too, to be honest, I don't want to sit through another season. I don't want to sit through a full season of this roster essentially being the exact same. No, thank you. But ask yourself this. Is that better or worse than Scott Perry just trading away guys for pennies on the dollar just to get rid of them and get some fresh faces in here who aren't nearly as good as them? Especially fresh faces that don't fit Scott Perry's vision long term. I don't know. We'll see. I am not opposed at all to Malik Monk remaining on the Sacramento Kings. I like Malik Monk a lot. But as Scott Perry's going to go through and evaluate this roster, he's going to make choices that I don't know, fans might not like, because Malik's a fan favorite here in Sacramento. I'd argue Malik Monk's the most popular King in Sacramento right now, maybe second to Keon Ellis. But popularity is one thing. Fit in the long-term vision is another. And you brought Scott Perry in. You want to empower him as the general manager. If he's going to make an unpopular decision because he believes in it, you got to empower the general manager. So we'll see. We'll see what the Kings do with Malik Monk. We'll see what the Kings do with Schroeder. We'll see what the Kings do with these 4 prospects that they've added over the last 48 hours in the draft. I want to hear your thoughts on those 4 guys. I want to hear your thoughts on Schroeder, hear your thoughts on my perspective or perceived short-term direction for the Sacramento Kings. I want to hear your thoughts on Malik Monk potentially being traded too. Send them to me at MattGeorgeSac on Twitter or X, at MattGeorgeSports@gmail.com. You can email me, or feel free to leave your thoughts in the comment section down below if you're watching on YouTube. Appreciate your support as always. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode of Locked On Kings. I'm excited. I'm going to be talking to some of the coaches of these Kings draft picks. Looking forward to that. So that I'll have those episodes coming for you, plus more breakdowns of this Wild Kings offseason. Free agency is right around the corner too. The Kings have a big decision to make about Keon Ellis. We're just getting started, baby. There's a lot to talk about with the Kings, and I'll share with you everything that I'm hearing, everything that I can, right here on the Locked On Kings podcast.